The massive war room buzzed with quiet activity as Admiral Vexthara studied the holographic star map floating before her. Blue lights marked the 12,000 star systems under Zephyrian control. Each light represented victory, conquest, and the expansion of their mighty empire. The hegemony had ruled this section of the galaxy for 800 years without a single major defeat. Vexthara's silver skin gleamed under the artificial lights as she moved her forearms to manipulate the display. Her large, dark eyes focused on the newest additions to their territory. 3 more systems had fallen to their fleets in the past month. The inhabitants had surrendered after seeing just one Zephyrian warship enter their space. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Keckstill from his station. "The sector reports are ready for your review." She nodded and walked to the central command table. Her officers stood at attention as she approached. The hegemony military was efficient and disciplined. Every soldier knew their place and followed orders without question. The lieutenant activated the display, showing detailed information about their recent conquests. Resource counts, population numbers, and military assessments filled the air with data. Vexthara smiled with satisfaction. Another successful expansion cycle. What about the unexplored sectors? She asked. KEX single quotes. Tal pulled up a new section of the map. Several areas remained dark, unmarked by Zephyrian presence. "We have 3 priority zones for the next expansion wave. Sectors 5 Delta, 9 Gamma, and 7 Alpha all show signs of inhabited worlds." As he spoke, an old communication beacon suddenly activated near Sector 7 Alpha. The ancient device had been silent for thousands of years. Red warning lights flashed across the war room displays. "What is that?" Vexthara demanded. Her communications officer worked quickly at his station. "It appears to be a predecessor beacon, Admiral. These are extremely old automated warning systems. The predecessors had vanished from the galaxy long before the Zephyrians had achieved spaceflight. Only their ancient technology remained, scattered across distant worlds. Most of their devices no longer worked, making this activation highly unusual. Can you decode the message?" "Yes, Admiral. The translation is coming through now." A mechanical voice filled the war room, speaking in the ancient predecessor language that was then translated into Zephyrian speech. "Warning to all spacefaring civilizations. The system designated 7 Alpha contains a world of grave danger. The 3rd planet, called Earth by its inhabitants, must never be approached. The species there is too dangerous for contact. They are creatures of endless war who know no surrender. Do not wake them. Do not provoke them. Stay away from their region of space. This warning comes from bitter experience. Heed our words or face destruction." The message repeated 3 times before the beacon fell silent again. Silence filled the war room. Several junior officers exchanged nervous glances. The predecessors had been powerful beyond imagination. If they had left a warning about something, perhaps it deserved attention. Vexthara laughed, breaking the tension. "Creatures of endless war? Too dangerous for contact. What nonsense." She gestured toward the star map showing their vast empire. "We have conquered the Shard Collective with their crystal technology that could cut through any armor. We destroyed the Vorth hive mind that controlled 1,000,000 worlds. We defeated the energy beings of the Nexus Cloud who could become pure light." Her officers nodded, remembering those great victories. The hegemony military had never met a foe they could not defeat. "Lieutenant, bring up the sensor data for this Earth world." Keckstill worked at his controls. Long-range sensors show it is inhabited by a species that has not achieved faster-than-light travel. They use primitive chemical rockets and have not even fully explored their own star system. Their technology level? Basic metals, simple electronics, chemical weapons. They appear to fight among themselves, frequently using crude kinetic projectiles and explosive devices. Vexthara examined the data with growing amusement. So the mighty predecessors were afraid of a species that still uses metal bullets? Perhaps their empire fell because they were too cautious. Her second-in-command, Commander Thelvis, stepped forward. Admiral, perhaps we should investigate more carefully before dismissing the warning entirely. Vexthara's expression hardened. Are you suggesting we fear primitives who have barely left their home planet? The hegemony does not cower from shadows and ancient ghost stories. Of course not, Admiral. I only meant, I know what you meant, Commander. But consider our record. 800 years of unbroken victory. 12,000 conquered worlds. We have faced every type of enemy imaginable and crushed them all. She turned to address the entire war room. The predecessors vanished because they became weak and fearful. They saw danger in every shadow. We are not them. We are the Zephyrian hegemony, and we bow to no one. The officers straightened with pride at her words. They had grown up hearing stories of their military might and cultural superiority. Besides, Vexthara continued, what could possibly threaten us from a world full of primitives who fight with chemical explosives? Their most powerful weapons would barely scratch the hull of our smallest scout ship. She manipulated the hologram to zoom in on Earth. The blue and green world looked peaceful from space. No orbital defenses, no space stations, just a single natural satellite. Set up a reconnaissance mission, she ordered. 3 stealth cruisers will observe this Earth and report back. We will prove that the predecessor warning was the product of a fearful mind. Should we inform High Command about the beacon's message? Asked Kextal. Vexthara considered this. Not yet. Let us gather real intelligence first. I will not have the War Council think we are afraid of bedtime stories. As her officers began planning the mission, Vexthara returned to studying the Earth data. Something about the frequent warfare among the humans intrigued her. Most species stopped fighting among themselves once they achieved global communication. Yet these humans seemed to fight constantly, even when it served no logical purpose. Perhaps that was what had confused the predecessors. They had mistaken chaotic self-destruction for actual military capability. It was a common error among less experienced civilizations. The hegemony had learned long ago that true military power came from discipline, superior technology, and coordinated strategy. Random violence was not strength, it was weakness. Soon they would have proof that Earth posed no threat to anyone except itself. Captain Yelandra commanded the stealth cruiser Silent Prowler as it approached the edge of the solar system. 2 other ships, Shadow Wing and Night Hunter, followed behind her in perfect formation. All 3 vessels remained invisible to primitive sensors thanks to their advanced cloaking technology. Maintain distance from the 3rd planet, she ordered her navigation officer. We will observe from the outer system first. Yelandra had commanded reconnaissance missions against 47 different species during her career. She knew how to study potential enemies without being detected. Most species followed predictable patterns once they achieved spaceflight. They built orbital stations, established moon bases, and sent exploration vessels to nearby planets. But as her sensors scanned the solar system, she found something strange. The humans had barely explored beyond their own world. A few small stations orbited their planet, and they had placed some basic equipment on their moon. Nothing more. Captain, her sensor officer reported, I am detecting no significant military presence in space. Just some communication satellites and what appears to be a crude space station. This puzzled Yelandra. Most species that achieved radio communication also developed orbital defenses within a few decades. Yet these humans seem to ignore the obvious strategic advantage of controlling the space around their world. Perhaps they are not as advanced as we thought, suggested her weapons officer. Or perhaps They are hiding their true capabilities, Yolanda replied. She had learned never to underestimate an enemy, no matter how primitive they appeared. Move closer to the planet. I want detailed scans of their surface activities. The silent prowler glided silently toward Earth, its sensors recording everything. What they discovered made the entire crew uncomfortable. The planet's surface showed signs of constant warfare. Explosions bloomed across multiple continents. Cities burned while others rebuilt. Military forces moved in endless patterns of attack and defense. The humans seemed incapable of maintaining peace anywhere on their world. How many different wars are currently active? Yolanda asked. Her intelligence officer studied the data streams. At least 47 major conflicts, Captain. And those are just the ones involving organized military forces. There appear to be hundreds of smaller fights happening simultaneously. Yolanda frowned. Most species fought for resources, territory, or survival. But these humans seemed to fight for reasons that made no sense. Religious differences, political disagreements, and ancient grudges that should have been forgotten long ago. What about their weapons technology? Primitive but effective. They use chemical explosives, kinetic projectiles, and some basic energy weapons. Nothing that could threaten our ships, but they seem very good at killing each other with these crude tools. The observation continued for several days. Yolanda watched human conflicts with growing bewilderment. Their tactics made no logical sense. They would attack superior forces, fight in impossible conditions, and continue battles even when defeat was certain. Most disturbing was how they treated their own wounded. Instead of leaving injured soldiers behind, as logical military doctrine demanded, humans would risk multiple lives to save a single wounded comrade. They seemed to value individual lives over tactical advantage. Captain, her communications officer called out, I am intercepting human communications. Their languages are primitive, but our computers can translate them. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with human voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Military communications mixed with civilian broadcasts. News reports described battles while entertainment programming showed fictional wars. Even their children's games seemed to involve combat and conflict. They are obsessed with warfare, observed her tactical officer. Every aspect of their culture appears to revolve around fighting. But they fight so inefficiently, Yolanda replied. Look at this battle here. She pointed to a display showing human soldiers advancing across open ground while under heavy fire. Any logical commander would retreat and find a better approach. Yet they continue forward despite massive casualties. Our crew watched in fascination and horror as human forces threw themselves against seemingly impossible odds. Some battles appeared hopeless from the beginning, yet the humans kept fighting anyway. Perhaps this explains the predecessor warning, suggested her science officer. These humans are clearly insane. No rational species would fight this way. Yolanda studied the tactical displays more carefully. Something bothered her about the human fighting style, but she could not identify what it was. Their methods seemed chaotic and wasteful, yet they were clearly effective against other humans. Show me their military training procedures. New data appeared on the main screen. Human soldiers trained in ways that seemed designed to break their minds and bodies. They practiced fighting in extreme conditions, learned to function without sleep or food, and were taught to continue fighting even when wounded or outnumbered. They trained their soldiers to ignore survival instincts, her psychological warfare specialist reported. Most species train their military to minimize casualties and preserve resources. These humans train their forces to accept death as an acceptable outcome. That makes no evolutionary sense, Yolanda muttered. How did they survive as a species if they are willing to die so easily? Her science officer pulled up genetic and historical data. It appears they evolved as persistence hunters, Captain. Their ancestors would chase prey across vast distances until the target collapsed from exhaustion. They are built for endurance rather than speed or strength. And they apply this same strategy to warfare? It seems so. Look at this historical battle. The screen showed ancient human armies facing each other with primitive weapons. They would fight for days or even weeks without stopping. The side that refused to quit usually won, regardless of tactical superiority. Yelandra felt a chill run through her body. She was beginning to understand why the humans fought so strangely. They were not trying to win quickly or efficiently. They were trying to outlast their enemies. "Captain," her sensor officer interrupted, "I am detecting increased human military activity. Several nations are mobilizing large forces. Are they aware of our presence?" "Negative. This appears to be related to their ongoing conflicts. But the scale is massive. Millions of soldiers are being moved into position across multiple continents." Yelandra watched the human military movements with professional interest. Despite their primitive technology, they moved with impressive coordination. Supply lines stretched across oceans. Communications networks linked forces on different continents. The logistics were actually quite sophisticated. How large are their military forces? Current estimates suggest over 200 million active military personnel, with reserve forces numbering in the billions. The bridge fell silent. Most spacefaring civilizations maintain small, professional military forces. The idea of a species with hundreds of millions of trained soldiers was unprecedented. They have turned their entire population into potential warriors, whispered her tactical officer. Yelandra began composing her report for Admiral Vextara. How could she explain what they had observed? A species that seemed primitive, yet maintained military forces larger than entire Zephyrian fleets. Humans who fought with no regard for logical tactics, yet somehow survived and thrived. "Prepare the return journey," she ordered. "We have enough data." As the silent prowler moved away from Earth, Yelandra could not shake her unease. The predecessor warning echoed in her mind. Perhaps the ancient civilization had not been afraid of human technology. Perhaps they had been afraid of human nature itself. High Commander Draconis reviewed Captain Yelandra's reconnaissance report with growing impatience. The data painted a picture of a chaotic, primitive world whose inhabitants spent most of their time fighting each other with crude weapons. Perfect for easy conquest. 200 warships should be sufficient, he told his planning staff. We have conquered advanced civilizations with fewer forces. His officers nodded agreement. The standard hegemony conquest protocol called for overwhelming force, quick surrender demands, and efficient occupation. Most species surrendered immediately when faced with superior technology. Those who resisted were quickly crushed by coordinated military strikes. The humans appear to have no unified government, reported his intelligence coordinator. Over 200 separate nations exist on their planet, many in active conflict with each other. They will be unable to organize effective resistance. Draconis smiled. Divided enemies were the easiest to defeat. His fleet would demand surrender from each human nation separately. Most would comply, rather than face destruction. Any holdouts could be eliminated as examples to the others. 3 weeks later, his invasion fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 sleek warships took positions around the planet. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a major city. The combined fleet could destroy entire continents if necessary. Begin broadcasting the surrender demands, Draconis ordered from his flagship's command center. Use all human communication frequencies. The message went out in every human language simultaneously. Draconis had used variations of the same speech hundreds of times during his career. Attention, inhabitants of Earth. This is High Commander Draconis of the Zephyrian Hegemony. Your world is now under our protection. Cease all military activities immediately and prepare to accept our guidance. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your civilization. You have 24 standard hours to surrender unconditionally. Draconis expected the usual response: panic, desperate negotiations, and quick capitulation as human leaders realized the hopelessness of their situation. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Every human communication channel suddenly erupted with the same word in hundreds of different languages and accents. No, not just from government officials or military commanders. The word came from everywhere. Radio stations, television broadcasts, internet communications, and even children's toys somehow transmitted the same defiant response. "Sir," his communications officer reported with confusion, "the humans appear to be rejecting our surrender demands." "All of them?" "Yes, sir. We are receiving negative responses from every nation, organization, and communication source on the planet. They seem to be unified in their refusal." Draconis frowned. This had never happened before. Even the most warlike species usually had peace factions willing to negotiate. But these humans seemed incapable of accepting the logical choice. "Perhaps they do not understand the situation," suggested his tactical officer. "Should we demonstrate our weapons capabilities? Proceed with a limited strike against an uninhabited area." One of his destroyers fired a single plasma beam at an empty island in Earth's ocean. The blast vaporized several square kilometers of rock and water, creating a mushroom cloud visible from space. Seismic sensors across Earth registered the impact. Human communications channels fell silent for exactly 37 seconds. Then, a new message began broadcasting from multiple sources. Message received. Response unchanged. Come and take it. Draconis stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The humans had just witnessed weapons that could destroy their entire civilization, yet they still refused to surrender. Either they were insane or they possessed hidden capabilities his scouts had missed. "Begin Phase 2 of the pacification protocol," he ordered reluctantly. "Target military installations worldwide." His fleet opened fire on human military bases, weapons factories, and command centers. Precision strikes eliminated dozens of facilities within the first hour. Conventional military wisdom suggested that destroying a species' organized military capability would force immediate surrender. The human response was unlike anything in hegemony military history. Instead of surrendering, the humans began fighting back with whatever weapons they could find. Military units scattered into hidden positions. Civilian populations started building improvised weapons. Most disturbing, humans began attacking Zephyrian landing parties with tools, vehicles, and bare hands when necessary. "Sir," reported his ground forces commander, "we are encountering unexpected resistance. Human military units are not retreating to defensive positions. They are actively hunting our forces." "With what weapons?" "We destroyed their major military installations." "They are improvising, sir." "Civilian vehicles modified with weapons. Construction equipment used as assault platforms. They have turned farming tools into weapons. Some are attacking our soldiers with nothing but kitchen knives." Draconis watched the tactical feeds with growing alarm. Human resistance was not following any logical pattern. They should be conserving their forces and attempting to negotiate. Instead, they seemed determined to fight every Zephyrian soldier personally. "What about casualties among our forces?" "Higher than expected, sir. The humans refuse to retreat even when facing certain death. They are setting traps, conducting ambush attacks, and showing no regard for their own survival." More troubling reports continued streaming in. Humans were turning their own infrastructure against the invaders. They collapsed bridges to slow Zephyrian advances, then used the rubble as defensive positions. They sabotaged their own power plants to deny resources to the occupying forces. Most shocking was their treatment of Zephyrian prisoners. Instead of executing captured soldiers, as military logic dictated, the humans were attempting to convert them. They shared food with prisoners, showed them images of Earth's beauty, and tried to convince them that the invasion was wrong. The humans are trying to turn our own soldiers against us, his intelligence officer reported. Several captured personnel have requested asylum rather than prisoner exchanges. That is impossible. Zephyrian soldiers are loyal to the hegemony. Normally, yes, sir. But the humans are using psychological tactics we have never encountered. They treat prisoners as individuals rather than enemy combatants. Some of our soldiers are becoming confused about the purpose of this invasion. Draconis realized his carefully planned conquest was turning into something else entirely. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced. They ignored military doctrine, accepted impossible casualties, and somehow maintained morale despite facing overwhelming odds. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a message from Earth's governments. They appear to have formed some kind of emergency alliance. Put it through. A human voice, speaking accented Galactic standard, filled the command center. This is the United Earth Defense Council. We were not consulted before this invasion began. Since you have chosen to attack our world, we are prepared to show you what 8 billion humans can accomplish when properly motivated. We suggest you reconsider your position while you still can. The transmission ended before Draconis could respond. 8 billion? He asked his intelligence coordinator. That appears to be their total population, sir. If their previous conflicts are any indication, they may be capable of fielding military forces numbering in the hundreds of millions. For the first time in his military career, High Commander Draconis felt doubt creeping into his mind. The hegemony had invaded this world expecting to face a primitive, divided species. Instead, they seemed to have awakened something far more dangerous. His forces controlled several major cities, but human resistance was intensifying rather than weakening. Every captured territory became a center of guerrilla activity. Every defeated human unit seemed to inspire 10 more to take their place. Request reinforcements from High Command, he ordered quietly. We may need additional resources to complete this pacification. Admiral Vexthara stared at the reports flooding in from Earth with growing horror. What should have been a routine conquest had become a nightmare that defied all military logic. Her forces were not just losing ground. They were being systematically hunted by an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. How many ships have we lost? She asked her aide. 17 destroyers, 8 cruisers, and the heavy battleship Eternal Victory, Lieutenant Kextel reported grimly. The humans are using our own technology against us. This was the most disturbing development. Somehow, the primitive humans had managed to capture intact Zephyrian weapons and reverse engineer them with impossible speed. What should have taken decades of research was accomplished in weeks. Show me the latest incident reports. The tactical display filled with horrifying footage from the surface. Human soldiers were using modified Zephyrian plasma rifles. Civilian engineers had somehow converted captured shield generators into improvised artillery. Most shocking of all, humans were piloting stolen Zephyrian fighters with deadly effectiveness. How are they learning to use our technology so quickly? Vexthara demanded. Her science officer pulled up analysis reports. It appears they are natural engineers, Admiral. They understand mechanical principles instinctively. Even their children can disassemble complex devices and rebuild them in new configurations. Vexthara watched security footage of human prisoners in detention facilities. Instead of sitting quietly as expected, they were studying the construction of their cells. Several had already escaped by rebuilding the locking mechanisms from the inside, What about their military coordination? This is where the situation becomes truly alarming, her intelligence coordinator reported. The humans have achieved something we thought impossible. They have united their entire species under a single military command while maintaining their individual cultural identities. The display showed Earth's new command structure. 200 former enemies were now working together with seamless efficiency. American generals coordinated with Russian admirals. Chinese engineers shared technology with European scientists. African tactical units trained alongside Asian special forces. They accomplished in weeks what it took us centuries to achieve with conquered species. Vexthera whispered, but the most terrifying aspect was not their technology or organization. It was their attitude toward warfare itself. The humans seemed to view the invasion not as a disaster, but as an exciting challenge. Play the latest intercepted communications. Human voices filled the command center, translated by Zephyrian computers. But the translations could not capture the tone of enthusiasm in their words. Finally, a real enemy came from one military frequency. These aliens actually know how to fight. Did you see those plasma cannons? We need to get some of those for ourselves. My grandfather fought in World War II. He would have loved to see this. Vexthara felt her blood grow cold. These humans were not terrified by superior technology. They were inspired by it. Each new Zephyrian weapon they encountered became a puzzle to solve rather than a threat to fear. Admiral, her communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a priority transmission from High Command. The hologram of Supreme Commander Zalthek appeared before her. His usually calm demeanor showed signs of strain. Admiral Vexthara, explain the situation on Earth immediately. Supreme Commander, we are facing an enemy unlike any in our experience. The humans possess capabilities that our intelligence failed to identify, such as they learn at an unprecedented rate. They adapt to new situations instantly. They refuse to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. Most disturbing, they seem to enjoy fighting against superior enemies. Zalthek's expression darkened. Are you telling me that 200 of our finest warships cannot subdue a primitive planet? Sir, they are not primitive. They are something else entirely. They have turned their entire civilization into a military force while maintaining industrial production. They are manufacturing weapons using our own technology faster than we can destroy their factories. The display showed human production facilities. Factories that had built civilian vehicles were now producing armored fighting machines. Electronics manufacturers were creating communications equipment that could penetrate Zephyrian jamming. Even entertainment companies were designing propaganda to maintain human morale. Furthermore, Vexthara continued, they are using tactics that violate every principle of warfare we understand. They sacrifice tactical advantage to save individual soldiers. They waste resources on hopeless gestures of defiance. Yet somehow, these illogical choices are working in their favor. Zalthek studied the tactical displays. What do you mean? Watch this engagement. The screen showed human forces attacking a heavily defended Zephyrian position. Logic demanded they bypass the strong point and attack elsewhere. Instead, they assaulted directly, suffering massive casualties. They lost 60% of their force, Zalthek observed. How is this effective? Because their sacrifice inspired other human units to fight harder. Our soldiers became demoralized watching the enemy refuse to retreat. 3 other Zephyrian positions fell because our troops could not understand why the humans would not surrender. More reports streamed in as they spoke. Human resistance was spreading beyond Earth itself. They had somehow launched vessels toward the outer planets, establishing hidden bases in asteroid fields and on distant moons. They are using the entire solar system as a battlefield, reported her tactical officer. Our ships cannot safely approach any planetary body without facing ambush. How are they moving so quickly? Zolthek demanded. They have modified their primitive chemical rockets with captured Zephyrian technology. The vessels are crude but effective. More importantly, they are willing to undertake missions that our pilots would consider suicide runs. The screen showed human spacecraft attacking Zephyrian destroyers. The human ships were clearly outmatched, but their pilots showed no hesitation in ramming enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They are using their own ships as weapons, Vextar explained. They calculate the destruction of one human vessel as an acceptable cost for damaging a Zephyrian ship. Zolthek fell silent for several moments. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of uncertainty that had never been heard from a supreme commander. Admiral, I am authorizing the deployment of additional fleets. We will commit whatever resources are necessary to end this quickly. Sir, I must advise caution. The humans are learning from each engagement. They study our tactics and develop counters within hours. Additional ships may simply provide them with more technology to capture and reverse engineer. Are you suggesting we retreat from a primitive world? Vexdara hesitated before answering. Sir, I am beginning to suspect that the predecessor warning was not about primitive technology. It was about something far more dangerous. Explain. The humans are not fighting for territory or resources. They are fighting because they enjoy the challenge. They have turned warfare into an art form. Every defeat teaches them new lessons. Every victory makes them more confident. We are not conquering them, we are training them. The tactical display updated with new intelligence. Human forces were now coordinating attacks across multiple star systems. They had established supply lines, communication networks, and forward operating bases throughout their solar system. They have transformed their entire civilization into a military organization in less than 6 months, Vexthara concluded. If we do not stop this quickly, they will become unstoppable. But even as she spoke, both commanders knew the truth. It might already be too late. The humans had tasted alien technology and found it to their liking. They had faced an interstellar empire and refused to bow. Most terrifying of all, they had discovered that they were very, very good at this new kind of war. Earth was no longer a target for conquest. It had become a training ground for the galaxy's newest apex predators. The bridge of Admiral Vexthara's flagship trembled as another human vessel rammed into its hull. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the command center, while damage reports flooded in from every section. What remained of the once mighty Zephyrian invasion fleet was trapped in Earth's solar system, surrounded by an enemy that had learned to use their own weapons against them. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported her damage control officer. Human boarding parties are cutting through our armor with modified plasma torches. Vextara looked at her tactical display with despair. Of the original 200 warships that had come to conquer Earth, only 43 remained operational. The humans had not just defeated them. They had completely outmaneuvered the most powerful military force in the galaxy. How many human ships are we facing? She asked. Our sensors detect over 800 vessels of various sizes, her tactical officer replied. Most appear to be converted civilian craft, but they are armed with our own technology. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. In the 8 months since first contact, humanity had evolved from a planetary species using chemical rockets to an interstellar military force that built warships in the asteroid belt. They had reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology, not just to copy it, but to improve upon it. Admiral, her communications officer interrupted. We are receiving another surrender demand from the humans. Put it through. A human voice spoke in perfect Galactic standard, though the accent was unfamiliar. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Space Command. Admiral Vexthara, your position is hopeless. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the same standards you showed our civilians." The message carried an implied threat. The Zephyrians had not been gentle during their occupation of human cities. If the humans applied the same standards in return, her soldiers faced a grim fate. "What are their terms?" Vextara asked. "Complete disarmament and withdrawal from the solar system. All Zephyrian technology and personnel will be transferred to human custody. In exchange, they guarantee safe passage for non-military personnel back to hegemony space." Vextara almost laughed at the absurdity. 6 months ago, she had been demanding Earth's surrender. Now the humans were dictating terms to her. "Admiral," her science officer called out urgently, "I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The humans appear to be activating some kind of new weapon system." The tactical display updated to show human installations on Mars, Luna, and several large asteroids. Energy readings suggested they had built weapons far more powerful than anything in the original Zephyrian fleet. "How is this possible?" Vextara whispered. Her intelligence coordinator pulled up analysis reports. "The humans have not just copied our technology, Admiral. They have combined it with their own scientific knowledge to create hybrid systems. They understand the principles better than we do." "That cannot be true." "I am afraid it is. Human scientists have published research papers explaining how our plasma weapons work more efficiently than our own technical manuals. They have identified weaknesses in our shield systems that our engineers never noticed." Vextara realized with growing horror that the humans had been studying Zephyrian technology not just to use it, but to understand its fundamental principles. They were not just learning, they were innovating. "Admiral," her communications officer interrupted again. "Priority message from Hegemony High Command." Supreme Commander Zolfik appeared on the hologram, his face showing signs of exhaustion and fear. "Admiral, you are ordered to retreat immediately. Do not engage human forces under any circumstances." "Sir, our forces are already engaged. We cannot withdraw without." "You do not understand," Zolfek interrupted. "The humans are no longer contained to their solar system. 3 human vessels have appeared in the Alpha Centauri system. They are demanding the surrender of our mining operations there." Vextara felt the blood drain from her face. How did they achieve faster than light travel so quickly? They did not just copy our drive systems, they improved them. Human ships can now travel faster than our fastest vessels. They have gone from chemical rockets to superior FTL technology in 8 months. The implications were staggering. If humans could travel faster than Zephyrian ships, nowhere in the galaxy was safe from them. Furthermore, Zolfek continued, our intelligence services have decoded some human communications. We now understand why the predecessors left that warning. Sir, the humans were not isolated on Earth because they were too primitive to leave. They were quarantined there because previous galactic civilizations recognized them as an existential threat. Vextara stared at the hologram in shock. What do you mean? The predecessors encountered humans during an earlier period of their history. The warning beacon was not meant to protect the hegemony from primitives. It was meant to protect the galaxy from humanity. But that is impossible. Humans only achieved spaceflight recently. No, Admiral. Humans achieved spaceflight thousands of years ago. Then something happened that forced them back to their home planet. The predecessors and other ancient species made sure they stayed there. The tactical display suddenly erupted with new contacts. Dozens of human vessels appeared throughout the system, emerging from hyperspace with perfect coordination. Admiral Vextara, came Admiral Chun's voice again. You have 30 seconds to respond to our surrender terms. Otherwise, we will demonstrate why the galaxy's previous civilizations were wise to fear us. Vextara looked around her bridge at officers who had served the hegemony with pride for decades. They were some of the finest military minds in the galaxy. yet they had been completely outmatched by a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Sir," she said to Zolthak, "what are your orders?" "Surrender, Admiral. Surrender immediately, and hope they are more merciful than we have been." As Vexthara prepared to broadcast her capitulation, her sensors detected something that filled her with absolute terror. Human vessels were leaving the solar system in every direction. Not just the 3 ships that had appeared at Alpha Centauri, but hundreds of others heading toward every major hegemony system. "Admiral Chun," she broadcast, "the Zephyrian fleet surrenders unconditionally." "Wise choice," came the reply. "Prepare to receive boarding parties for formal surrender ceremonies." As human ships approached her flagship, Vexthara understood the final terrible truth. The hegemony had not just lost a war. They had awakened something that should have remained sleeping across the galaxy. Automated systems began broadcasting a new message on all frequencies. The voice was unmistakably human, speaking with the confidence of a species that had just remembered what it was capable of. "Attention all galactic civilizations. This is the United Earth Space Command. We have been confined to our home system for far too long. Our children are coming home to the galaxy where we belong. We seek peaceful coexistence, but we will accept no attempt to contain us again. We have learned much from our recent visitors, and we are eager to meet new neighbors." The message paused before continuing with words that would haunt every alien species for generations to come. "To those who think they can oppose us, remember this: you were warned to stay away from our region. You chose to ignore that warning. We hope you have learned from your mistake, because this galaxy has room for everyone who wishes to live in peace. But it has no room for anyone who threatens Earth or her children." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate its new reality. Humanity had returned to the stars, and this time, no one would be able to force them back into quarantine. The predecessors' warning had been clear: stay away from Earth's region. The hegemony had chosen arrogance over wisdom. And now the entire galaxy would face the consequences of awakening the most dangerous species in the universe, a species that had learned to love war and had just discovered they were very, very good at it.